Recording. Thank you. Okay, so welcome everyone to our BoF session on digital twins, supporting data-driven science through optimal data management and sharing. This is a session. This is once held session. We don't have a repeat one for this. But we are hoping that this is a good time for everyone to join, everyone who's interested in the topic. We know that at the same time there's another BoF ongoing, but hopefully, since there is a difference in terms of the domain and of the topic, this should be a good way to kind of separate the interests. Let's see if I manage to move ahead. So as usual, a few housekeeping points. You might have noticed that the session is being recorded and will be made available afterwards. Please feel free to use the chat for anything, any comments and anything that you'd like to highlight. Kindly mute your microphone just to be sure when you are not speaking, but we would very much like to see the faces of the people that we're talking to. So if you would like to turn on your camera, that would be much appreciated. There will be a set of short talks that just to set the scene and maybe give a few examples of the topics and the things that we would like to address with this BoF. We encourage the questions towards the end of the presentations, but in the meantime, please feel free to add them to the chat. Those are much welcome, and also if you can indicate who the question is for, then that would certainly help a lot. We've added a couple of important links also to the slide. You can find at least the collaborative session notes in the chat, and there's a short URL also on the slide. And we've also added the link to our group webpage. We're just setting this up, so for the time being, it's an interest group, but things will be clarified once we move along. Okay, so the agenda for today, we'll start with a few introductions, and we'll discuss a little bit the overview of the BoF objectives. Then we'll highlight a few of the activities on digital twins and discuss a few of the data challenges that they address to set the scene and kind of understand the context that we're moving in. And then hopefully move on to define a few clear next steps for the group and how this effort is going to be taken forward. So to start with a little bit of an introduction, and I'll start with myself, but then I'll pass on the floor to my co-organizers of the session. But we'll also open it up to you more broadly. So we would like to hear your name, background, interest in this session, or anything that you think would be relevant. So all input and all ideas are more than welcome. So my name is Time Abiro. I work at the CSE IT Center for Science in Finland, and I'm joined. Who would like to go first? Hannah, Alex, Justin.
So I can also, sorry. So I can present myself, as I also work at the CSE IT Center for Science in Finland as a senior research data management specialist. And my background is in biology, and I've been working also with the biodiversity digital twin and quality data interoperability, standardization, in all these kinds of issues related to biodiversity and environment data. And I'm going to present the digital twin, biodiversity digital twin use case here. So who's next? Is it Chris?
Justin, yeah, you can.
Want me to go? Okay, Justin Buck, National Oceanography Centre. I'm a principal robotics engineer and delivery lead in the Marine Autonomous Robotics Systems group. this is the dream job. It took me 16 years to get it, but before I got that job, I was working very closely with Alexandra in the British Oceanographic Data Centre as senior data manager. My interest is very much in the applications of digital twins and actually using them to do real things and actually make decisions, and that's what I'll be showing when I show the MassDT project as part of this session. I guess Alexandra, because you're also not next.
Okay, so hello, I'm Alexandra Kukinaki. I work in the National Oceanography Center. As Justin said, we used to work together, now we still work together. And I am really more specialized on the semantic element of data. I am the technical lead of the NERC vocabulary server, but I'm also really focused on fair data and interoperability and standard issues. So I will be talking about that later on, as we have already worked in some digital twin projects. And I'm very, very interested to be able to bring together the efforts of digital twins to manage to be interoperable from birth, rather than try to become interoperable after we have implemented everything.
You'll see that that's a little bit of a thread throughout the presentations and the approach that we are suggesting. So we are hoping to leverage ongoing activities around digital twins and understand how they can come together and well, progress all in line and in an interoperable manner. So anyone else? I don't want to point the finger or call on anyone, but I would welcome you to shortly introduce yourselves. It would be interesting to understand what has brought you to this session.
I can introduce myself. So I'm Christian Paget. I work at Surfax in France, and I'm interested in digital twins because I'm in the Enter-Twin project. So we are building a digital twins for several applications. I'm in the climate scientific domain, and I'm working on climate streams in that project for digital twins. And I can also mention that I just arrived in Leipzig because I am the HPC workshop. So.
Very good.
I can go next. I'm Katie McNeil. I live in the United States, and I'm actually between jobs at the moment, looking for another one, incidentally. And I have a background in data management and data archives, and I know next to nothing about digital twins. And I thought, oh, this is actually like a good opportunity for me to learn what they are in a context like this. So looking forward to listening a lot and learning.
Oh, that's great. And I mean, I hope we will be able to move in a way from the very high level to the details in a manner that is relatable. Okay, Kim, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah. So I can introduce myself as well. My name is Kim Ferguson. I work at DANS, which is an institute in the Netherlands. We're partially a data archive, and we also work on several projects. And one of the projects that I work on is called LTR Life. It is a nationally funded project that aims to support researchers to build digital twins of different ecological and environmental systems. The project just received funding last year, and it's set up to last for 10 years. And the initial part of the project now is really in the nitty-gritty details of data management as well as data resource sharing. So that's really what I'm keen to get from this session as well, to see what can help us along that path. We have several different institutes as well as data sources that we work with, all the range from academic organizations that have their own data management scheme, as well as organizations that are more volunteer-based or maybe less academic, but still have loads of information and data that could be put into a system, but then how best to capture that.
That's very good. And you'll actually see that BioDT works closely with the other network and with a few of the projects actually. So you're very welcome to the group. Lars?
So I am Lars Eklund. I work for the Swedish National Data Service and for the National Bioinformatics support in Sweden. and also for the HPC system in Uppsala, which is a mirror to the CSC in Finland. I have had an interest in digital twins for quite a long time, actually. Like I started thinking about these type of matters in '98 or something like that. But it's now that the technology exists to actually implement these things. Yeah, the interest in RDA and digital twins got me peaked on the last RDA plenary where we had a short kind of spontaneous session about digital twins. So I wanted to see more about this.
Yeah, I mean, Alexander will will testify to that. It was one of the seeds that have led to this activity. So very welcome, Lars, as well. Andrea.
Okay, so good afternoon. So Tim, you know me, but I'm Andrea Manzi from the GEA Foundation. So GEA Foundation is based in Netherlands, but I'm working remotely from Italy. We are coordinating the Intertwin project, also mentioned by Christian, introduced by Christian before. The goal of the project is to build a multidisciplinary digital twin engine, so with different domains and supporting like different type of sciences. And basically, I'm not like into the digital twins since many years, but basically since we started the proposal of the project like 3 years ago, and we started like investigating about this topic, of course. Thanks.
Okay, very good to have you both. I'll mention Intertwin in my slides as well. So, anyone else? If you would like to say a few words about yourself and about your interest in the session, you don't have to, but yeah, this moment is open for introductions. Okay, I think we can move on. I don't see any other hands or people turning on their microphones or their cameras. So yeah, I think we can close the introductions, at least for the moment. So just to briefly touch upon the objectives of this specific session. So this is a BoF, so it's a first meeting on the topic, and we would like on this opportunity to define a little bit the agenda for the group and a very high level plan of action. That means that we would like to prioritize some of the challenges that we see are in this field, specifically for digital twins, and if there are any tools or solutions, to try to do a mapping of those and understand who are the stakeholders and what is the broader context. As I mentioned before, this specific session is focused more on Earth system component digital twins, and more specifically biodiversity and marine, but it's open to all. We're also moving in the broader context of ecosystems like the Destination Earth in Europe or the European Open Science Cloud, but we would like to open that up to more broader efforts and try to understand how these projects are positioned globally, because that's in the spirit, of course, of the RDA, that would like to bring all of these endeavors, regardless of geographical boundaries, together, so we can learn from each other and move on together. So again, a starting point, it's the conversation about the data challenges and also ongoing collaborations and how information is managed and addressed across various digital twin initiatives. So now I'll pass the floor, I'll stop sharing and I'll pass the floor to Hanna, who will be talking to us about the biodiversity digital twin. I'll complement her talk later on. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. Do you see my slides
Yes.
in
If you
presentation mode, maybe?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so my task was to present the BioDT project, which has been going on for 2 years and 1 more year to go now. And this presentation was collaboratively constructed earlier together with a bigger group, and Sharif Islam presented it last October in the Biodiversity Information Standards Organization TADWICS meeting. And yeah, so I'll present it now. So what are digital twins, or the biodiversity digital twin is a prototype providing advanced models for simulation and prediction capabilities through practical use cases addressing critical issues related to global biodiversity dynamics. And now it doesn't go there. So a digital twin is a virtual representation of real-world entities and processes synchronized at a specified frequency and fidelity. And here fidelity refers to the level of precision captured by the digital twin in comparison with its physical counterpart. So there's real space, which is the physical twin. Data is collected from there or created from there to create the virtual space, which is the digital twin, and these two mirror each other. And then there's information and process, so that the virtual space gives indication, and then we can collect more data to make the virtual twin more precise in mirroring the real space. So a digital twin is composed of data and then a model that is the representation in terms of behavior, and then application that connects the data and model in a way that makes the outputs of the model relevant given the specific purpose of the digital twin. So it's especially important to realize that since different scopes require different behavior and fidelity, there cannot be a single twin answering all possible questions. For the biodiversity digital twin, the data at the moment comes from 4 different distributed infrastructures. GBIF, the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, which is global international network and data infrastructure providing open access to biodiversity data. Then LifeWatch ERIC is a European e-science infrastructure for biodiversity and ecosystem research. And that's already well established and mature infrastructure. Then for Europe, the LTER network is called ELTER, and it's still under construction. It's been built with numerous projects and hopefully reaching a more mature status in the forthcoming years. And then there's also another research infrastructure, European one in making, called DISCO, which is the Distributed System of Scientific Collections. And they are also providing data, but they are not really a mature infrastructure yet. And these different, or actually, yeah, so the biodiversity digital twin actually consists multiple different prototype digital twins, which are being grouped according to the question they aim answering. And those groups are species response to environmental change, genetically detected biodiversity, dynamics and threats from and for species of policy concern, and then species interactions with each other and humans. And all these prototype digital twins or use cases which become prototype digital twins, have metadata that enhances data findability and context. It's important for the FAIR principles. They use controlled vocabularies to have consistency and clarity in data interpretation. We use semantic mappings that enable harmonization and meaningful integration of diverse data. And then we try to utilize existing standards like, excuse me, Darwin Core and EML that serve as foundational network. And because biodiversity is very large and heterogeneous domain or field, combining this biodiversity data, which includes events and evidence information about these biodiversity occurrences, but then also direct environmental measurements such as temperature, precipitation, soil composition, etc. This presents a multifaceted challenge. This integration is essential to understand how environmental factors influence biodiversity and the behavior of these models. So here an example constructed by Bekir Asaf and Otso Ovaskainen about forest management and biodiversity. So they have been kind of searching or combining data that would then be modeled and answering the question, how will forest biodiversity change under different forestry and climate change scenarios, and how can these predictions be utilized in conservation and adaptive forest management? And then the digital twin application should help in finding the most appropriate forest management strategy, optimizing these different viewpoints to the forest ambitions, like whether you wish to have optimize having most financial profit and still get benefits for biodiversity, or how would you manage your forest in relation to, say, climate change scenarios, where if you cut your forest, what kind of forest will you replant, taking that the climate is changing? And these kinds of optimizations are piloted with this digital twin. So to be able to do these modelings, we are using fair digital objects. So we have foundation of digital twin applications is data plus models. And then we have a harmonized abstraction layer using persistent identifiers, PIDs, and then fair digital objects, FDOs, for the data records. And this means that the data and the metadata are wrapped together by using these PIDs so that it's transparent and you can track back the lineage of the data and the processing. And then we use semantic mappings and crosswalk techniques to provide machine actionable metadata. And the formal representations of problems or processes are implemented through equations, algorithms, and or combination of both. These processes are also assigned with metadata that would, as an example, tell what is the format of the input data, what types of data does the model accept, what is the format of the output data, where and how can the model be accessed, and what steps are needed to run the test and test the model, and what were the parameters used to generate a particular version of the model. And if you wish to find out more about the models and fairness of the data, there's a GitHub site that you can find from the slides or from the BioDT website. Then the actual infrastructure where we run these simulations and models and gather the data. The data and models require really robust computing infrastructure. So BioDT is utilizing the Lumi supercomputer for the prototype digital twins, and software. The use cases require a comprehensive suite of software tools, also need software for data acquisition, storage, processing, and analysis. And coordinating diverse software components is a crucial aspect of BioDT. And workflow representation, so we use standard procedures and protocols and try to implement implementation of research object crate, so-called raw crate, to organize and manage digital objects within different workflows. And now I give over to Timea. Just a moment.
I think I can take over.
There.
Oh, there you go. So for the next few slides, we're going to also try to position the BioDT effort within the broader context and highlight also some cross digital twin efforts that we are involved in. So BioDT, of course, doesn't work in a silo. It looks at aligning the technical and data standards in various contexts and with various stakeholders in order to actually leverage a very broad range of expertise and resources in the most effective manner. We have developed a set of interoperability and integration scenarios that have two major objectives. So on the one hand, we would like the BioDT developments to be available through European and also hopefully global platforms and infrastructures in order to increase their reuse. And at the same time, we would like to make a valuable contribution through the developments of the BioDT projects to strategic initiatives like Destination Earth. As I was saying, it's part of a very broad landscape and a complex policy one. So BioDT is looking at answering policies such as the EU Biodiversity Strategy, the EU Green Deal, but also the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And through that, it has also two major sort of points of reference. One is the European Open Science Cloud, and the other one is Destination Earth. BioDT subscribes to its vision and ambition to actually build this highly accurate digital replica of the Earth, and in doing so to leverage the existing and new data sources and also the computing infrastructure that is available in Europe. In order to deliver more effective decision-making at various levels and support the adaptation strategies and also the mitigation measures in relation to the climate change, to the ongoing climate change that we see. Actually, we have tried to also identify very clear points of interest and aspects that we hope to leverage through the alignment with such strategic initiatives and also with other digital twins. So we think that digital twins can leverage from such ecosystems like our core Destination Earth, because this opens up their access to various data sources. And Hannah has actually given an example and has detailed how complex the data sources are, the ones that are leveraged for the prototype digital twins that are being developed under the biodiversity digital twin. Furthermore, aligning the infrastructure with these initiatives allows an onboarding and an integration of these services within these federated platforms that are being developed. And specifically for the research infrastructures that are part of BioDT, this is a very important value add because it helps establish themselves as data providers within these data holdings, data spaces, or the digital twins that are being developed. Furthermore, the presence or the integration and alignment with EOSC and Destination Earth allows for the services that are being developed through the digital twins to be more discoverable. This means that, of course, researchers can tap into the data and the models provided by BioDT and can leverage them within their own research work. On the long term, in terms of sustainability, the alignment with such efforts helps, of course, in making them more sustainable on the longer term. Another sort of category that of collaborations that we wanted to highlight is the cross-DT collaboration that we have with the InterTwin project that was mentioned earlier, and also with another project, DTGeo. So all three projects, BioDT, DTGeo, and InterTwin, are sort of sister project, if we can call them that, and there is an ongoing effort that aims at the alignment of a glossary, so the terms being used throughout. So then that would help, of course, not only the communication, but also the alignment in terms of technical aspects and standardization. And also there is a higher level objective of aligning the high level architecture that would help guide the interoperability between these initiatives. Furthermore, there's been a discussion around use cases to pilot this interoperability, as it is, of course, it goes without saying that the exchange of the data and information and the running of these digital twins at the same time is beneficial across the board. This will help the technology transfer and also make the actual interoperability efforts more sustainable on the long term. BioDT, and specifically two of the prototype digital twins that it develops, so the crop wild relatives and the forestry biodiversity prototype that Hannah actually mentioned before, are also engaged in something that we called the UMETSAT Destination Earth use cases. So basically, these use cases have been selected to showcase the benefits in terms of data usage and also of services that the Destination Earth data lake provides. So this is just an effort to pilot, but it helps with, of course, with highlighting the benefits of such federation efforts. And both, there's been a few developments around the potential data adapter that would help connect the research infrastructures that are serving BioDT and these larger data holdings, hopefully then establishing a mechanism that would allow for biodiversity data to be streamlined and shared in these data holdings and in other virtual research environments. So there are quite a few ongoing activities. We see value in most of these. It's work in progress. We would be very much interested in learning of similar efforts. And we will do that in the open conversation that we have scheduled in the second half of this session. But now I'll pass on the floor to Justin. Let's see if you can pick up the
Let's try.
Slides, the presentation. There you go.
I'm just moving things around. Might need to swap the share mode.
Yes. Thank you.
How's that?
Looks good. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm going to show you a very short piece of work. It's a relatively new project. It runs from the 1st of January this year to the end of March next year. And we're going to try and build a digital twin of autonomous ocean observing to better serve different communities. the team is too numerous to put on one slide. Alexandra, within this call, she's a key member of this team. But it includes researchers, it includes engineers, software engineers, vehicle pilots, basically the full breadth of people needed to do research with robots in the ocean within the team. Before I can go into the kind of detail on that, I've got a couple of slides on the rationale for interoperability and why it's important to be talking about this and why we're here. And this first slide comes from our now director, who was a co-chair of one of the DISO steering teams. And he basically made a case that the observations that we take are critical and they need to have a public benefit. And the digital systems that we're building in terms of what we do with data, what we do with digital twins, what we do, needs to actually be part of that value chain from the observations to the users. And with the way we conduct research now, those digital tools are needed to actually ensure we get the most benefit for users. And he saw the digital twin of the ocean, which is one of the UN Decade activities, as a key enabler for digital twins within our community. And when you kind of go down beneath that and you think, okay, so we need to build interoperability, we need to build those systems. And Alexandra and I worked on a project called the Information Management Framework for environmental digital twins. And that scoped what was needed within our community for interoperability and services and co-development of digital twins. And we looked at 3 use cases. The first was 3DT, which is actually an atmospheric dispersion model and used for tracking pollutants in the environment. Land Insight, which is soil, carbon and moisture, key for things like climate reporting, also key things like flooding, which have significant impacts on civil society. And then we had a British Antarctic survey helping us with the Antarctic twins when they're building a digital twin in the Antarctic, and within their digital twin the sea ice, and within that a digital twin the ship, in order to optimize the observations of the ship and actually change the way they're observing the ocean. And the key finding was that there's plenty of interoperability across that piece, from discovery of elements and twins, the data, the processes, the services, tools, visualization. But we don't need interoperability across everything. It's about those key use cases where we can realize most value and actually focus our effort. And this slide here gives a link to the key report we produced in those projects. And to show what we did actually within those projects, we took kind of the underlying policy. So you've got work by the Centre for Digital Built Britain at the time. And then we took the environment theoretical landscape through our colleagues at CEH. And at the bottom, we kind of fed in things like the foundation model, reference data library, integration architecture, governance, and other elements in terms of the requirements that we need. Looked at the use cases, pulled it all together, and we produced a report, I think it was maybe 2 years ago now, which actually just had an underlying framework and recommendations for co-development of interoperable digital twins. So that project happened, and then we did another project which extended that work, which looked at a use case around biodiversity in the ocean. And now we've moved on to another project. So the UK, we're working on these really short 12-ish month projects, which means we're having to do project after project and the themes change and the focus changes slightly. And this piece was actually around marine autonomy and the challenge we face. So this is the new cool dream job that I have, is building digital systems to underpin these bits of kit that are put in the ocean for researchers. And you can see we've actually got a diverse fleet of about 3 dozen platforms now, and these are supported by the research ships. And the amount of usage of these platforms is increasing significantly. So if you look at things like gliders, there's 25,000 hours at sea now, and 12,000 hours. This is in the last year. Auto subs, 1,700 hours, research ships 277 versus 1,800, 1,600 all the time. So you can see that the amount of autonomy is actually increasing in light significantly. And this has created some real challenges for us. We want to actually, with autonomy, we don't want to just operate autonomy and go to research digital data. We actually want to give them more control over the systems. And actually say, this is what I want the platform to do for my science. But we need to keep the pilots accountable for those platforms, because ultimately they're in control of those platforms, but we somehow need to give those researchers more control. want to make sure that the data collected by the platforms actually has value beyond research applications. So can be used in things like operational models that underpin 10-day weather forecast. And then we also want to make the process easier for our pilots. So we've got a team of about a dozen pilots in our organization with more platforms, and we actually want to make the process more efficient for them. And this spun up, this led to this project. We're actually going to develop a twin. And on the physical side, we have in the pink, we have those operations of the platforms. On the left-hand side, we have effectively, we're using an operational model. We're using AI and machine learning, which actually looks at previous glider missions and will actually help us direct how to command that glider. And then we've got what we call execution monitoring, which actually sends the commands off to the autonomy so they can do the work. And the goal in this is to have this virtuous circle where, as we actually use the twin, we actually improve the model, and then the model can in turn improve the gliders, and we actually have the physical virtual representation actually improving how we operate the physical observations. And we're working on 3 use cases, so that's a 15-month project, which means we don't have much time. We can't build a full twin of everything. So we're actually focusing on 3 specific use cases. One is around autonomous waypoint navigation. So effectively a researcher going, I want the glider to go there. You see the picture here is actually a mission that we ran last year, and the currents affected us quite badly. And rather than getting the run a nice straight line, which kind of goes out to sea, we actually got pushed off and we couldn't actually give the research the observation they wanted. The second one is around maximizing that value to the Met Office ocean models. So this is not a glider operate for the Met Office. And we actually want to tweak the way we're operating this glider to actually give them more benefit. And the third is around actually mission planning and evaluation. So we give research the ability to interact with the twin, and that will give them options in terms of how they can operate the platforms for users. But the project goes beyond that. So as part of that, we're conscious that the work we're doing is not done in isolation, and it's part of the broader digital twins community. So we've got Alexandra's going to be working with us on the standards and methodologies needed to actually underpin the work. We've been running a workshop around how we can actually connect components together. It's the software with Turing. And one of the real challenges that we face in terms of the big community is within the UK, we've got like Turing Institute, we've got a group called DT Hub, we've got an industry body called the Connected Places Catapult. And they're all working together, but working slightly differently. We have to align with them. And then we have to align at European level. So you've got, as already mentioned, the BioIT presentation, you've got Destination Earth, you've got Open Science Cloud, and others. I think last count, there's over 50 projects in Europe working with digital twins, which is a real challenge to get that interoperability. 56, I think, was the last count that was given. That was October last year. So we're going to be looking at doing a virtual workshop in the summer on interoperability components with the Turing Institute as part of the Turing Research Innovation Cluster and Digital Twins. And then we've got senior stakeholders in the UK. So these are our funders. And we show the work to them once a year to actually get their priorities, which can then shape the next project effectively. But it gives us that key input and make sure the work we're doing is of the most value. So this is a little bit about what the twin looks like. We have in the middle, we have what we call the comms backbone, and this is where the interoperability fits. We've got going to have a visualization and interface for users to interact with. And then we've got Oxford Robotics Institute actually doing the AI with us in the project. And they've got a service they call the mission planner. And this NOC-C2 is kind of the operation system we use in the organization to operate platforms. And then we've got the control station. And all of these interact with that backbone in different ways. The reason there's lots of arrows in different colors, that's because those bits are interoperable. And as we've got what we call here the IMFE registry, or an asset register. I think in Europe it's got a different name. Alexandra will probably know the name. But essentially it's a catalogue of those components in the twins. People can discover them and potentially reuse them. And this is where that interoperability sits. And this is the last slide, and this gives kind of that overarching vision of where we want to go, because we've actually I've shown a very small use case, doing design work at the moment to actually make those possible. But we actually want to be able to bring in other things. So you can see here we've got things called PolarRoute and IceNet. And IceNet is the digital twin of CIs that Richard Survey produced. PolarRoute is the twin they're using for the ship. We actually want to bring in other components into the twin. So when we operate platforms in the Antarctic, we can just bring in that component from BAS, which we need to give us the sea ice, which will help us in navigation there. work in the tropics. We potentially want to use things like satellite information so we can navigate around Sargassum, which is the big, thick seaweed you get on the surface. So we want to actually have this architecture so that we can actually bring in and actually share our components with other twins and other activities to actually improve what we do in a very efficient way. Last little note is I co-lead this with a colleague called Alvaro Lorenzo Lopez. If you need more information, please reach out to us. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. I'll share my screen for the final presentation, and then you can ask your questions. Can you see my screen? Yeah, yeah, okay. And let me just put it in presenter mode. So the photos look like Justin's photos, but we'll talk about a different thing. So I think in this interest group and generally for digital twins, we definitely need a definition of what a digital twin is. And in the chat, I saw Katie asking this question. So there have been several attempts to define what a digital twin is. So I'm going to attempt a few. So a digital twin is a virtual representation of a physical asset enabled through data and simulators in order to provide real-time predictions, optimization, monitoring, controlling, and in the end, actually improve decision-making. The digital twin differs from a traditional modeling tool, which is the main question that we normally get, that in the way that it is interoperable, federated, and designed with user interactivity in mind so that the users can actually run these what-if scenarios. For us to build digital twins, we needed to develop an information management framework. We call it IMF, and that supports data and information flows. And on the left, you can see the activities, the sequential activities that were required to develop an information management framework, and they are running from left to the right in time. So the vision, the conceptual framework, the management, having a common language, having a pilot study, and so on. What we managed to do and report in 2022, and you can see that I think down here, we published the information management framework for environmental digital twins. I have put it in the notes as well. So this created a roadmap, and then using this one, we worked in a pilot study that started in October 2022 that wanted to test a slice of that, of those sequential activities. The pilot study that we worked at was the marine protected area of Haigfras. So we wanted to develop a digital twin to monitor and predict changes of the benthic communities in this marine protected area, but also to test and develop an IMFE, an information management framework for environmental digital twins. And finally, develop and share tools and assets to support future digital twins. So I think this is what really interests me, could interest you as well, which is the proposed architecture of an IMFE, and in the heart of which is the asset commons. And if you've heard before the data commons bring together data with cloud computing infrastructure and commonly used software, services, tools, applications for managing, analyzing, and sharing data to create an interoperable resource for a research community. This is what Grossman wrote in 2018. And this is very similar with what the Asset Commons is doing. So the Asset Commons brings together assets of digital twins, and the assets could be data, could be models, methods, workflows, and we support them or describe them by incorporating ontologies and vocabularies in order to be part of an asset catalog and at the same time implement the FAIR principles. And the last one is also making sure that they also manage uncertainty. So Justin referred previously to the asset register and the asset commons. So the asset register really is a catalog of assets. It's a list or a comprehensive inventory of what your DT, your digital twin components are. It is supported by ontologies and vocabularies, and it includes detailed information about each one of the assets of the digital twin, like the description, the location, the URL, coverage, license, standards, and so on. Why do we want to have an asset register? One very important reason is because how are you gonna discover digital twins and their assets if you want to reuse them? It will be a single point of access to connect with other digital twins and to discover other digital twins. Internally, it is a way to manage your assets of your digital twins. And of course, it would be a point of interoperability and transparency, both internally for the digital twin and of course, externally with other digital twins. This is what the asset register could look like. So this is the asset register that includes many digital twins, and each digital twin has data sets, collections of data sets, software, models, services, workflows, standards, and semantic artifacts. And what we did in our project is we leveraged what already existed. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel rather than reuse what already exists. So there is a list of already existing ontologies, the list of which of whose are here. And we used several of them to describe each one of the different asset types of the asset register. These are some of the standards we used, the ontologies, vocabulary standards, like RDF, Sparkle, OWL, DCAT, schema.org, and so on. And this is the vision of looking at digital twins as an ecosystem of digital twins that are machine actionable, and they have machine actionable assets. We definitely would need translation engines that will allow the standardized data to be transferred from one standard to another, because we don't anticipate that we will agree on every single aspect between the different digital twins that we build. So we do need bridges to translate. So mappings and crosswalks, as Hannah has already said in her presentation. And then for the end, I have some questions and suggestions that I think everyone that participates in a digital twin project or has to build a digital twin will have to think about how others are going to discover the digital twins. Is EOSC the right place to be listing our digital twins? Do we need a new type? Because currently we have different types of things that we display on the web, that there are like data, they are systems. Do we need a new type to dedicate to digital twins, or can we just call them systems? Are the existing ontologies enough to describe what we need, or do we need to expand on them? And questions like that are questions that would be raised while we are building all those digital twins. I think we have gone to the question part of the session.
Well, I think you can keep the slides on. So for the open discussion, we actually had two major questions. So we wanted to understand if there are, in addition to, and Alexandra ended very well with the long set of questions that we do interpret as also some of the challenges that the group can address. But we would like to open up the floor to ask if there are other data or other types of challenges that you'd like to highlight, and things that the group should prioritize. And also if there are additional efforts around collaboration or bringing together interoperability between digital twins and larger ecosystems, and things that we should be considering for the activities of the group. So we welcome your thoughts. Of course, also if you have any questions around the things that we have addressed so far, those are more than welcome. Christiana, I see you have turned on your camera. Did you have anything you want to add?
I didn't have anything to add, but just thinking on the spot, I think agreeing on a definition of the digital twin scope is very important to be sure that we understand the same thing. I mentioned things in the chat, but I think it's not the only thing, because we have mentioned interoperability, that is very important. So I think this really needs to be quite clear for the scope.
Yeah, and I had mentioned that together with InterTwin and with BioDT and GeoDT, we're also looking into a glossary. And I think Andrea might be better positioned to talk about this, because the glossary effort is also driven on the InterTwin side, and it leverages the Digital Twin Consortium glossary, but it tries to nonetheless highlight how the more broader definitions apply in the case of the digital twins that are being addressed or developed under these projects. Andrea, do you want to say something in?
Well, I can put the link of this Digital Twin Consortium glossary that you mentioned, because basically we, as you said, we started from these contents and definitions that are here, trying to understand if those definitions are fine and I mean, are common to the projects that are working together, as you mentioned, on the InterTwin, DTGO and BioDT. And we're also trying to understand if there are missing definitions that could be incorporated upstream to this Digital Twin Consortium glossary. So, given that we don't know other like structured glossary for digital twins, we decided to start from this, and then to see if we could. There are gaps that we need to cover with what the definitions that are there, and we need to add more definitions to this glossary that this consortium is building. So this is basically one of the activities that was mentioned by Timea. And this at the moment is coordinated by Destination Earth. So Destination Earth is driving this, and of course with the input also from the other project that has been mentioned. So it's an ongoing activity. So it's not it's something that we are doing basically now.
I'm sharing it.
Thank you.
With you, yeah.
I think also one of the points is that the existing glossary and a lot of the sort of advancement are also driven by the extended use of digital twins in the engineering field. So which is a use that is slightly different from what we envision in these projects. So this sort of alignment, I think, would be very beneficial. But yeah, Christian, more to your point, this is one of the things that probably should be at least decided. What are the terms that we commonly use, and yeah, how we should reference those. Thank you. I see, Justin, you have your hand raised. Please.
Yeah, I think so. Most of the presentations have had a kind of environmental focus, and the breadth. Once the terms of reference are set and we know what the group looks like, I think we may need to go and recruit people from other areas that we see as gaps within the team that we've got. There's just such a huge amount of digital twin activity going on in different places in different contexts. And to make this work, we need to make sure we've got that quorum of people that can reach that consensus that's inclusive. I mean, an example was I was at the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre in Sheffield last week, and I was in basically a pseudo research factory which had a live digital twin running in the corner, which looked after all the operations. They've done a lot of this work. They've got these things working, and there's real things we can learn outside the environmental community in terms of bringing this work together and actually reaching consensus.
Yes. Yeah, it was actually one of the suggestions from the tab when they have reviewed our submission for this BoF session, to make sure that we also keep an open channel of communication with the other groups that are looking into aspects related to digital twins. I mean, I know that there's an immune digital twin that has a session ongoing at the same time as we do. So that was a little bit of an unfortunate, or maybe an overlap in terms of not necessarily an unfortunate, but an overlap in terms of the scheduling. But yeah, that should be one of the groups that we should be also aligning, especially since they're trying to push forward for the topic under the RDA umbrella. I think that there's also a group, or there has been a session that was looking into artificial intelligence for digital twins, but I might be wrong. But yeah, I absolutely agree that there's a lot of activity, quite diverse, depending on the domain and on the purpose of it, and it would be good to try to align as much as possible.
Yeah, can I ask the question, especially for the people that actually are working in digital twins? And I know that in several European digital twins, there are coordination efforts that try to bring the smaller projects together to make them interoperable. What is your biggest difficulty, or what is your biggest issue at the moment that you would like to connect with other people to solve? Because interoperability is a matter of a social connection. It's about agreeing on standards, agreeing on how you implement the standards and what technologies you will be using. But really, the technology can enable, but it's about us agreeing on how we want to implement interoperability. So I wonder, what is your biggest issue at the moment that you would like to see solved through this interest group, or you would like to use this interest group as a platform to get that out and make it bigger? I can start if you like. I could start with my problem. For example, when we try to create the asset register for the asset commons, you need to identify what are the components of a digital twin, but not only for your digital twin, but generally for all digital twins. So we do have a list now of the components. I would like to cross-check that with other projects. And then we had a list of ontologies and vocabularies that we used to describe them. But at the same time, there are several different efforts going on, even from Microsoft. So Microsoft also created some kind of ontologies to develop digital twins. I can't remember now what it's called, but while we were doing this research, we found several different efforts. For me, what would be really important is to be able to say, this is what I found, this is how I intend to describe them. Is this something that you are doing? And can we work together so that we have something more complete to work with? Because I think every project currently has a semantic layer. Every project has to have semantics and vocabularies to be able to achieve interoperability. That's my area. So I wonder, what are the other areas that you would be interested in providing interoperability?
If I can, no, sorry, please raise hands.
Go ahead, Kim.
I mean, I don't have an answer for Alexandra, so if you have an answer for Alexandra, you should go first.
No, it was
Okay.
not an answer. No.
I mean, the issue that my team is working on right now, and I say this because I don't work on the infrastructure side at all. I'm mainly the connector. I give trainings, and I'm a former researcher. So what they are working on right now is, look, we have a lot of data sets that we want to be able to put into a virtual environment, but first we have to figure out how to make these data sets speak to each other. And the big issue between is you have people working with biodiversity data, and then you also have bioinformatics data. And there's already disagreements on the structure of a CSV file that is properly used for collecting genomics data and the standards used within genomic research versus the standards used in more traditional observational research. And then from a data archive perspective, we have all of these lovely data sets that we would love to put into a digital research environment. But we also have to think, do we have the right to enrich this data with additional metadata that can be used within a digital twin? Or do we have to get permission from every single author, or in this case, data provider, which is the university? So these are also really just issues of, we host the data, we don't own the data. Do we now have to start this 3-year process of, we love your data, but it needs to be enriched? So that's from our side as a data provider. What other members of the consortium are doing is they're trying to write a guide for researchers now to be like, look, you're in the middle of collecting data. Let's do it in a way that your work and your data collections can be used in a digital twin system, and trying to get them along this path of increasing training for researchers so that we don't have to do this 3-year process of contacting researchers after they've already published their data set. So that's more the data side. Infrastructure, I have no idea, because I leave that to my peers that like to talk about Darwin Core and RO Crate, and like, I already told them, like, oh, I've heard it discussed in this presentation, you'll have to look at these notes later. But yeah, so that's our main thing, is actually the people work necessary.
I will agree with you. Yeah, I see Justin and Hannah having their hands up. Tima, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I just meant to say that on the other side of the digital twins, people are very much keen to incorporate social sciences data into the processes. So there's will on both sides. But I'll pass the floor to Justin. I think he was the who politely raised his hand.
Yeah. Alessandra might disagree on this, but this is diversity opinion from the same organization. So one of the challenges in data and interoperability of anything is it actually comes down to the definition of fair. And fair is not a single standard to rule them all. It's about communities that need to develop standards coming together and developing a set of standards they need to use. So I mean, examples is the biodiversity community. Darwin calls the metadata standard they use. If you look in oceanography, they use a broker and server called ERDAP. They also use things like CF, which is a set of standards that come out of the US to describe their data. And then within Europe, you've got CDataNet, who use a format called ODV based on ISO 19115.2. So effectively, you already have different communities that are meeting that definition of fair because they have standards which work well within their communities and enable service to be built on top of them. But there are chasms between them because they haven't developed them with other communities. And in those places, you need to develop crosswalks to actually go between them because you can't impose your standards in another community and vice versa because it will never happen. It'll just get stopped either through people going, that's not what I do, or because it's too expensive. So I think one of the real challenges in this work, and you see it in data a lot because data is where we've done the most work in interoperability. There's also things like software, visualization, other components where we haven't really done that work yet, but data is the most mature area. And it's reaching that pragmatic consensus where we identify where crosswalks are needed and identify where people need to enhance their metadata. And once those recommendations are placed and everybody agrees to them, you can actually start to make this happen. And it's a real challenge. It's come out of the very organic way that a lot of the work we do on standardization actually happens.
Yes.
Thanks, Justin. Hannah.
Yeah, I think Justin kind of cast the subject, but I could add that for the sequence data, I don't know if you are aware, but right now in Europe, the Elixir communities many countries are trying to establish eDNA or Elixir biodiversity community, and that would be one additional community that uses sequence standards that need to be mapped to the biodiversity occurrence data standards. But I think it's a good start to connect to these different communities and start discussing the fairness of their data and their standards and how to create these crosswalks between these communities that have different viewpoints to this data that is brought together in a digital twin.
True. Can I add on Kim's point about republishing data that others have published in a different way with more metadata and all of that? Because we had the same issue with Hakefras with our pilot digital twin. First of all, it's about license. So if you do have the license to do whatever you want with the data, a lot of times you have, and you only need to cite them, you can. And then what is most important to do with this kind of data is the provenance. Keep the provenance, where the source is, where the original data came from, and what you did to the data to become like that. So if you keep the provenance, and that's part of the fairness, and republish, and people can actually go to the source and reproduce what you did in the end, that's absolutely fine, because all of us will be restructuring publishing data to fit our purpose, and reformatting, adding metadata that we need and may not be needed somewhere else. But it is important to have a platform where we can ask these questions and be able to discuss until we come to a consensus.
Yeah. So I'm reading that there's a lot of things around mapping best practices and sharing those across different communities. And this is probably also where the geographical aspect might also come into place, because now at least the conversation has been very much focused towards Europe and UK, but it would be nice to understand if in different regions the approaches are different and how that's being done. Go ahead, Justin.
I'm very fortunate to be on the steering team of the Ocean Best Practice System, which is an IOC, IODE, UN level group, which are bringing together the practice for the way we observe the ocean. And there's a lot we could potentially bring to this discussion from there.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds very good. Okay, I see that we've got less than 15 minutes in the session. So can we outline, unless there are additional questions or points that you'd like to raise, can we see if there's a kind of a group of people or a core group that would be interested in putting together the charter for the group? We would open that up, of course, for the entire group constituency, to try to define what should be the agenda for the group. I'm trying to share my screen, so sorry if I'm lagging a little bit. Okay, so yeah. So the point was to try to set up a core group that would pick up on the template for the charters and try to, based on this initial conversation, to try to fill in some of that information. Generally, the charters ask for a problem statement. They also would like to understand what are the use cases, topics in terms of priorities, what are the problems that are being addressed, who are the people that we would like to involve, and also if there's a membership that is already foreseen for the group, types of roles that would be interested. So basically, not only building an agenda but and a plan for the group, but also trying to understand the broader context that it's moving inside in. So yeah. If you would be interested in joining this core group, we are also looking for co-chairs. So that's also volunteering for that is very much welcome. The more diverse the skill set, the better it is. I don't think that there is a limit to the number of co-chairs that we can assign, but they need to be balanced geographically. So it would be good to have also, as I was saying, from the other regions. And we would also have to be thinking about the next meetings, especially because if we do want to follow up with a session at the next plenary, so the plenary in November, the COF session has a 3rd of July deadline. So we have more than a month and a little bit to put together based on the conversation and on the work on the charter to submit also a session application for the next plenary, if that's of interest. Maybe I'm optimistic, but my feeling is that there is interest, and I'm hoping that people will raise their hands and volunteer to be part of this core group. And if this is an activity that you'd be interested to maybe dedicate a little bit more time, you can also volunteering for co-chairmanship is more than welcome. Okay, no direct of volunteering at the moment, but I see smiles, so I'm hopeful. We will follow up though. Thank you for adding your names and contact address to the collaborative notes. So we will follow up with a few considerations and also with the broader invitation to join this core group and also the volunteer for co-chairmanship. Hannah.
Yeah, you just mentioned the invitation, so maybe as this group wasn't that big, hopefully the recording will spread the word, but maybe it would be good to also kind of spread the information and the invitation to known suspects on other continents.
Known and also unknown. Go ahead, Justin.
There's an opportunity next week So Alexandra and I have a poster in for the IMDIS conference in Bergen, which brings together all European people on marine data. I kind of want to put RDA, this group, as kind of one of the conclusions, if that's okay, with links to it, and it will start to get the message out there.
Yeah, that would be brilliant, Justin. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. That would be much welcome and appreciated. Okay, we'll do the same as well. So we'll try to further disseminate the sort of objectives behind this this exercise. And we've added also the link to the group page where you can actually sign up as a member and follow the updates. We'll follow up also on the group as well as separately with the people that have signed up on the sheet in the collaborative notes. So hopefully you'll have a little bit of time to think about it, and we'll proceed with the template for the charter, and it will be open for all contributions. So maybe if people are a little bit reluctant to commit at the beginning, they will nonetheless, to the extent of the time that they have, they can contribute to the charter and follow the updates via the group. Okay, I'm just opening up also the notes. Yes, thank you, Alexandra. Alexandra has put in the link in the chat as well. So yeah, I guess those are then the next steps that we're taking. We'll set up the template for the charter and open up the document for contributions. We welcome and appreciate if you can spread the word. We also welcome volunteers for both core group as well as for the co-chairs, but members who would just choose to keep up with the developments are also very much welcome. Okay, good. I think we're finishing 5 minutes ahead of time. So if there are no other questions, I thank Alexandra, Hannah, and Justin for the talks, and for all of you for the questions and the contributions. And I saw very active note taking as well, which I couldn't trace back because it's anonymous, but we appreciate it very much. Questions were also very much welcome. So thank you very much and hope to see you soon.
Thank you for a great session.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.